Yo, what up guys, Mysterious here, and we're back with a new video, how to beat the reworked Aurelion Sol this time. He's been a menace, he's been taking over the Rift, and I definitely think he will get nerfed a little bit, because it's pretty hard to beat him right now. But there's a few opportunities that we have, and we're gonna jump straight into them. We're gonna start with the strengths. What are Aurelion Sol's strengths? First of all, zone control. That's exactly what his E does, that's exactly what his R does. He is a control mage at heart. That's what he's very good at, but that's also what his weakness is, which we'll cover in the next slide. He has a lot of wave clear, especially once we get to the levels 7, 8, 9. The wave clear becomes pretty insane, and it's pretty hard to stop him once he reaches that level without being behind. Of course, scaling, infinite scaling. If we let Aurelion Sol scale for free, the chances of us winning the game are dropping drastically. So, he also has some situational mobility. Aurelion Sol has some mobility, and it is good mobility against certain comps, but it is very bad mobility against other comps. So, it's a situational mobility, which is therefore a strength of him, but it can also be a weakness. And then finally, he has massive damage. He can shred tanks like it's butter, especially when he gets a lot of these stacks on his Q. Like tanks don't even stand a chance, so Aurelion Sol damage is extremely problematic and a big strength of him. Then we move on to the weaknesses, and this is what we're gonna exploit to actually beat the Aurelion Sol. His early lane, it's weak, it's really weak. He has extremely high mana costs, he has extremely long E cooldowns. The only time that Aurelion Sol has a good early lane is if we face tank his Q for a long amount of time. He also struggles versus hard engage and CC, and he also really struggles when he has to move into a fight. He's very good at letting enemies come into him, but he really struggles when he has to move into others. And here as well, he has situational mobility. His mobility is not gonna save him against a Silas. His mobility is not gonna save him against a Wukong or a Vi that's gonna jump in. So it's very situational mobility. Then, what does Sol want to do? He wants to farm up early and scale using his E to get Stardust. The mindset of an Aurelion Sol player is mainly, okay, first 3 waves. I want to use my E to get the first 3 creeps of Stardust. I want to make sure that the wave goes on my side. I don't want it too heavy, and I don't really want to initiate trades. I just want to scale, get to my level 7, 8, 9, so I can really start to do something. That's what an Aurelion Sol wants. He can actually have some firepower back in lane. And hence is why I think it's very important to understand this combo here. What Aurelion Sol can do is, if we are a champion that gets up in his face, he can Q, and then he can W and Q after you, because it resets his Q. And that's like basically the only opportunity that an Aurelion Sol has in lane to beat you with a trade and beat you badly too. Like, he can, in some situations, even 100 to 0 you in the lane if he has the mana for it. So I'm gonna show this combo in a clip, so you guys know what it looks like and how you can recognize it in game next time. But this is the only combo that we really have to be careful about. And then finally, he wants to play as a pure control mage and control zones and areas. Compared to an Orianna, if he's there first, it's extremely hard to walk in. But if we are first at an area, it's pretty hard for him to actually walk in. Yes, he can use his W, but it's always suboptimal, and his E and his R are just gonna have less value rather than you walking into an Aurelion Sol. So that's something that we definitely want to avoid at all costs. Alright, so this is the combo for Aurelion Sol I'm talking about. He uses his Q, maximum amount of time, then he does his W, resets his Q cooldown, and goes after the enemy opponent. These are the only opportunities that he really has to win the lane. And if we go back a little bit, the preconditions for this are, first of all, Aurelia exposes herself outside of the minions like this. Aurelion Sol has enough mana to actually get this combo off, and she has no CC to interrupt him. Those are the preconditions for him to be able to do this. So always keep this in mind. This is a possibility that he can do. And if this happens and he kills you, yeah, we're in trouble. Let's be honest here. because then we're giving a scaling champ free scaling, and that's not really ideal. Good and bad picks versus Aurelion Sol. Let's start with the good picks. Sylas, Yone. These champions can really speed up the lane phase, force trades over and over and over, and they have to hit Aurelion Sol just once with their abilities, and he's screwed. He just loses half of HP. They've got more sustain. Even if Aurelion Sol can get a good Q trade back into them, it doesn't really matter. They regen it up, and it's just pain for Aurelion Sol. They can hold the wave on their side, and then like if you can hold the wave on your side against an Aurelion Sol, like it's so hard for him to unfreeze it when you have lane control. He can literally just go down 40, 50 CS, go down 2-3 levels if we play it correctly, and if we take the good quality trades that we should take into him. Then Kassadin, of course, Kassadin can cancel his Q. He has the mobility to jump around, skills even harder than Aurelion Sol, so Kassadin is definitely a good matchup into him. Then as for the bad matchups, matchups that don't pressure him early, matchups that basically do what Aurelion Sol wants to do, Malzahar, but do it like 10 times worse. So yeah, if you pick a champion like that, you're just not gonna have many opportunities. It's gonna be extremely frustrating to play. Same as Vex, doesn't have the ability to bully him hard enough, gets outshoved later, and it's just not gonna be able to match the Aurelion Sol. Hence, how do we beat the Aurelion Sol? We're going to be extremely aggressive early, and the way we do that is by forcing trades. Abuse his E cooldown. He wants to use the E on the wave. Abuse his high mana cost, especially if you can have like press Q, stop, Q, stop, Q, stop. That will drain a lot of his mana. If he can do like one big Q, it costs a bit less mana respectively. We also want to be first at an area. As we said, it's a pure control mage. If he can control the area, control the choke points, it's going to be a disaster. And then we want to have hard CC, hard engage, multi-threat. That's how we beat him. If we have a Wukong or a Vi, and we can follow up on that engage, we always have the opportunity to beat the Aurelion Sol because of how oppressive it is for him to deal with. And then finally, yeah, I had to put it here. Like, Aurelion Sol is strong right now, and we gotta have a good matchup. If we have a bad matchup, we're gonna suffer. And not really suffer that he's gonna dominate us in lane, but rather that we feel hopeless that we cannot really do anything against him, because that's kind of the case. He can just avoid lane, skill up, and he skills harder than you. So yeah, it is definitely something to look out for. But most people pick Aurelion Sol early in the draft, so we can use a counter pick to deny him the free scaling. Now let's jump into a clip of how abusive we can actually be against the Aurelion Sol in lane. Alright, so let's take a look at this vault of Sylas versus Aurelion Sol and see how much tempo that he puts on this Aurelion Sol and that he's just unable to answer. So instantly we see this E, we know Aurelion Sol starts with E, he wants to use it for the Stardust, so we can just use E onto him. It's very hard for him to trade back. And once again he uses his E here, and we push the pace again. We kinda run the trade by missing our second part of our E, but it is what it is. Now let's continue. Here, once again, we kind of run the second part, but we're still giga clapping the Aurelion Sol because of how weak that he is. And these kind of trades, they really mess with the Aurelion Sol because his mana gets drained, his health gets drained, he gets put under pressure in the lane. And right now we just have to hit one E and he's dead. And that's exactly what's happening here. Use the right combo into his W and he just dies. And we can literally just do this on cooldown when we're playing a champion like Yone, Sylas. Just get on him on cooldown because that's the way we beat him. Like, be super, super aggressive early. And another thing that we can always keep in mind is, right, when he uses this laser thing to deal damage back to us, if we keep our E2, for example, for his laser thing, he cannot even trade back. And also, as we can see, his mobility here is just really, really useless. It doesn't do anything against a champion like Sylas. So if we have a good champion that can push the pace of the lane, we should be able to take advantage of that and should be able to put the Aurelion Sol massively behind. So I thank you all for watching. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I suspect some nerfs real soon to the Aurelion Sol. So I know that some games can be extremely infuriating, extremely hard, but keep your heads up. I thank you all for watching and let me know if you have any more questions. See you later, guys. Bye bye.